And I think for that to be our first year of marriage was even crazier looking back on it. But then if you do give into the slop, you're not helping grow the kingdom of God, you're exploiting it. Just because somebody else cannot relate to the change that you're going through or the emotions you're feeling does not mean that those feelings are invalid. The last few years have been absolutely insane, and you know what? It just keeps getting crazier, and I just wanted to sit down with you guys and have like a little heart-to-heart about just everything that's been going on. If you're new here, hi, I'm Amber Rose. This video is a little bit different from what I usually do, but I figured it would just be good to sit down with you guys and just talk about the changes and things that have been going on, because you guys are a huge part of my life, and so I figured I would update you guys on my life, period. But before I go into that, I first want to thank our sponsor, Sacred Spark. I'll talk a little bit more about them later in the video. This is just a random video that I decided to film, so I'm sorry if it's not super polished and it's all over the place. I'm kind of yapping about a bunch of different things. But you know what? I just like a good, honest, sit-down chat about things. I like to yap. Okay? Sue me, but don't sue me. I can't afford that. Okay, so a little bit of background before we get into my honest chat for those who maybe haven't been with me for super long, or maybe you guys just have never known about any of this stuff that's been going on. The last couple of years have basically looked like this, okay? My husband and I got engaged in April of 2023. My dad was diagnosed with a terminal brain cancer in March of 2024. Max and I got married in June of 2024. My sister got married in July of 2024. And during this time, I was traveling a ton for work. I was working over 80 hours a week, taking my dad to and from appointments. It was a very, very hectic time. And then in May of 2025, Max and I ended up moving for his job. And then during that time as well, I cleared my entire schedule because my dad was going downhill and I really wanted to be there to support my family. So I was taking frequent train trips back and forth between Missouri and Chicago. I was staying with my parents for months and months at a time to help out and just try to, I don't know, make things easier, I guess you could say. My dad ended up doing hospice at home, I believe either August or September of 2025 is when it started. And then he passed in November of 2025. We did the funeral, we did all the stuff. That was really exhausting for all of us. I remember that was a lot of long nights and a lot of uncertainty and just, you know, it was a lot. And then after that, we all went back to our respective states. My sister went back, you know, to her house. I went back to our apartment. And then Max and I found out we were pregnant in December of 2025. And then we went to my mom's for the holidays so that we could all be together as like a little family. And then we went to Max's family's for New Year's, basically. And that's also when we started telling people, because I believe at that point I was about 9 weeks, if not a little bit further along. But eventually, we finally returned back to Missouri, back to our apartment, back to normal life, January of 2026. It was like the middle of January because we stayed with his parents for, I think, 2 weeks-ish. Obviously, I'm not going to go into detail about every little thing that happened during that, you know, 2-year span, but just know there was a lot of chaos, a lot of stress, a lot of unknowns, a lot of doubt, just, you know, overall just a lot of fear. It was a lot. And I think for that to be our first year of marriage was even crazier looking back on it. I genuinely feel like we went through the first 5 years of marriage in those 2 years. And we just celebrated our second wedding anniversary on June 8th of this year. But I mean, we are extremely grateful for God because he has always looked out for us. He's always made sure we're taken care of in every way possible, and I'm very grateful for that. And I think this season of hell basically was just proof that, you know, no matter what we go through, we always have God, we always have each other, and that's very reassuring. It's very comforting in some ways, knowing that no matter what life could throw at you, literal curveball after curveball, there were so many situations where I was like, how on earth are we going to figure this out? And each time we were just fully invested in each other and making sure that we were taken care of, both of us. And at one point, during my dad's diagnosis when he was on hospice, my sister flew in and I took the train in, and we were there for about 3 months. Max was holding down the fort here. We rarely saw each other because of his job. He can't work remotely, and obviously we need income in order to keep our apartment. But despite that, he always tried to make trips up when he could. Usually it was weekends. It was really quick trips, but he did his best. He would drive like 10 hours sometimes there and back. It was insane. But we constantly called, we constantly connected. We would have 3-hour-long phone calls sometimes. I would go for drives. We would just chat, just making sure that we were still trying to put each other first as best we could considering the circumstances. But it was hard. I don't think I have ever gone through anything as difficult as that. And there were some times where I would get a bit of a reprieve. My sister would be like, go back for a little bit because you're so much closer than I am, so just take the train back for like a weekend or something and decompress if you can. So I would take the train back and I'd stay for a weekend or sometimes a week if I could. But when my body actually had time to decompress, it decompressed through panic attacks. I mean, I used to get these a lot when I was a teenager, but for the most part, I thought I was over them now as an adult because I had healthy coping mechanisms. I was overall just like a lot more mentally stable as an adult, but I was burnt out. I had out-of-body experiences where I just didn't feel like I was present. Honestly, we were all in survival mode, and I don't know how my other family were, you know, dealing with it necessarily, but for myself, I had been in survival mode since the day of my dad's diagnosis, since the day that we had to have him transferred to a downtown hospital, since trying to get to and from Chicago multiple times a day with rush hour traffic, making sure people are fed, trying to get answers from doctors. It was really, really a lot because during that time, it was 2 months before Max and I got married when my dad was diagnosed. So we were planning a wedding, we were doing all this stuff, and then on top of that, trying to figure out what was going on with my dad, because at that time we didn't actually know. Some people thought it was a stroke, other people thought it was some sort of brain bleed. None of us suspected it was a glioblastoma. So between wedding planning and running to and from, you know, appointments with my dad and making sure that my family's being taken care of, the burnout was early and it was very, very real. The amount of sleepless nights, the amount of just waking up in the middle of the night making sure that dad's okay. There was just a lot happening all at once and it was really hard to keep track of. And then once we were married, we road tripped out to Washington State for my sister's wedding, and that was a lot of fun and everything. So we did our honeymoon out there for a week, and then my sister's wedding was about a week. So basically altogether that trip took us a month because it took us like a week to get out there. We honeymooned for a week, my sister's wedding for a week, and then about a week drive back. But before we moved, we were kind of in this weird limbo in between because we weren't exactly sure where Max was going for work just yet. And then also with my parents and the situation going on at home, we just weren't really sure how to navigate that. So we ended up staying with his parents for a little bit while we were trying to figure out where to move. And honestly, that was great. It was a good time because they were trying to sell the house that they were living in, and so we basically were helping them sell the house while also being able to stay there for a little while. But his family was about 45 minutes to an hour away from my parents' house, but every single day I would wake up early almost every single day. There were some days where I just couldn't because I had other responsibilities happening, but almost every single day, multiple times a week, I would drive to my parents, I would make sure my dad got breakfast, we would go to his appointments, I would make sure my mom was taken care of. Some of his appointments would take almost all day, and then we would go for lunch, and then I would take him back. He would have a nap. While he was napping, I was usually working or taking care of the animals at the house, and then I would leave and I would come home and I would make dinner for Max and me because he was working at the time at a different, just kind of like an in-between job, which was absolutely awful. I don't even want to get into that whole situation. That was just awful. But basically, I just did what I possibly could to try and help as much as I could. And you know what? There are just seasons of burnout where you just can't avoid it, to be honest, because things need to happen. Things need to get done. It's not going to be permanent. This is very temporary, and now is the time to just kind of suck it up and get it done instead of, you know, complaining and trying to fix your burnout, because at that point there was literally nothing I could do to fix my burnout between working 80 hours a week, taking care of my dad, making sure the house was okay, trying to figure out where we were going to move, Max's horrible job. There were just so many factors, and I genuinely was like, you know what? I'm just going to be burnt out for a while. I didn't think that a while was going to be 2 years though. Now there are still some things that I am healing from, of course. I don't think you just get over anything like that. It doesn't work that way. You know, there are some things that, I hate the word triggered, but I mean, there are certain things that I'm just triggered by and I'll start uncontrollably crying. There's nothing I can do about it, which I think is a good thing to an extent. I think it shows progress and healing and progress and processing, because I wasn't even able to cry or show much of any emotion prior to, I don't know, the past 2 months. But I do think it's very interesting to see how healing is not linear. It's not the same for everybody. It doesn't look the same. I mean, it's genuinely really, really messy, and things you don't think that will cause you to come undone or that will be triggers are suddenly your biggest triggers, or you're like, why am I acting this way? Why do I feel this way? How come I can't feel anything? It's just very interesting. And I will say I am so grateful for having a husband who is just present, you know, very attentive, very understanding, very concerned, just very patient with my healing process. He never tries to rush it. He never tries to be like, oh, we're talking about this again. You know, no matter how inconsistent or messy or however it is, he's always been my biggest support. He's always been able to help me through some of the worst traumas of my life and just talk it through with me. I mean, he's willing to just like talk into the wee hours of the morning so that I can process and get things off my chest that have been bothering me. So I am forever grateful for having a husband who can just do that and be emotionally available and be able to help me through things like that. He's not my therapist, but he is my biggest support, and that is a game changer for sure. But I will say the one thing that I've definitely struggled with within our marriage is just it feels like we haven't actually been able to be married, you know, like actually enjoy marriage before all of the big stuff kind of sets in and, you know, real life kind of takes over. Now, I'm not complaining, like I don't want anyone to think that what I'm about to say is like me being ungrateful or anything like that. I'm very grateful for so many different things, but it has literally just felt like big things keep happening one after another after another after another. Ever since we got engaged, there has just been major life changes, major pivoting, and we have not had the chance to literally just slow down and appreciate our marriage and, you know, take the time to do the things that newly married couples usually do. Like I said, it literally feels like we have lived the first 5 years of marriage in the last 2 years. And it still just feels like we haven't really caught a breather yet. There are still some big things happening and going on. But that's why I think we want to be so intentional now that I'm not traveling so much and stuff. And obviously we're pregnant, but we want to be a lot more intentional with our free time and spending time together and actually being able to just be married and have fun. But of course, being pregnant kind of puts a damper on a little bit of that stuff, because the stuff that we like to do for fun, like kayaking, hiking, going shooting at a shooting range, all of that stuff, I can't really do while pregnant. And then even when baby comes, it's going to take a little while, obviously postpartum, to heal before I'll be able to go on our adventures like we normally would go on. And again, this is not a bad thing. This is not something that I'm like complaining about. I'm like, oh, I don't want to go. Like, no. I'm so excited for this baby. I'm so excited for this new area of life that we're kind of exploring. But you know what? Change is hard. And I'm not going to pretend like it's not. So Max and I have really tried to be more intentional with our free time that we do have, you know. I will say it's a lot harder with the weather being the way it is. If you're in Missouri, you guys know the weather during this time just absolutely sucks. The humidity is absolutely insane. It's like 100% humidity. The temperature is like boiling point. It's awful. Which means hiking and stargazing and all of that stuff is kind of out until probably like October, when it actually starts to cool down a little bit. But that definitely does make it a lot harder for us to find things to do, because if we want to go out to a restaurant, most restaurants are not worth going to anymore. It's overpriced. The food isn't very good. I can make literally 5 of the same thing at home better and way cheaper. I was really hoping it would cool off a little bit by now, you know, or at least like be tolerable in the mornings or at least in the evenings. But no, you break a sweat at 6 a.m., you break a sweat at 10 p.m. Literally does not matter. And you guys just know that like heat and pregnancy, it just does not mix. I can't do it. So that is basically something we are currently trying to navigate, because with baby coming and stuff like that, you have to really be intentional with your marriage, because everybody always says like, oh, when I have the baby, like my husband and I are going to be, you know, closer than ever. And it's like, for some people, yes, but the people who have great marriages when they have newborns and everything are the people who communicate super well, are super intentional about their spouses, making sure each other are taken care of. It doesn't just happen, if that makes sense. You actually have to put in the work to make sure you guys are prepared for when the baby comes. But I will say, luckily, when Beanie is born, it will be a lot cooler outside. Hopefully. Or at least by the time we get to take him on hikes and we get to actually start doing the things we used to do again, it will be a lot cooler, so that's gonna be really, really nice. But yeah, I don't know, it's been kind of hard with that type of change where it just feels like there has been one catastrophe after another, and this baby's like the biggest blessing ever, but the baby's still a change. You know, it's still another thing to navigate and figure out and all of that stuff. And, you know, we had always planned on getting pregnant eventually, but Max and I, we had all of these plans of like traveling and camping and hiking and touring the US and doing all of this stuff because that's just what we wanted to do. And then if we got pregnant along the way, well, all right then, great. But obviously that is not what ended up happening. Real life ended up happening. And even though our plans changed, you know what? We're no less in love. Does that make sense? Like, we are still so much in love. We're still in the honeymoon phase. We love spending time together no matter what it is. Like, dude, we literally go to Costco for fun sometimes, especially when it's like really hot and there's nowhere else to go and nothing else to do. Costco. But yeah, it can be really hard when like real life just kind of slaps you in the face and there's a bunch of changes that you guys have to constantly pivot and change and just be aware of and be flexible for. It's just been kind of hard, just coming to the realization that it's like we didn't get to do fun trips, the first couple years of marriage. We didn't get to experience married life the way that I guess a normal couple would. And because we never got to experience those things, and for good reason, like my family comes first. Like I do not regret being there for my dad. I don't regret any of that. But because of that, now we are more intentional about doing that stuff, especially with Beanie. Max and I, we love hiking, we love doing outdoorsy stuff, so when I am healed postpartum and it's cool enough out and we can take Beanie out, we are definitely doing a bunch of family trips. We're going to try and do what we can. But the people who say like, oh my gosh, your life is going to be totally over once you have kids, either they don't have kids or they just never learned how to compromise and be flexible. Like, will things be the same? Absolutely not. Things are going to be very, very different. I mean, you have this entire little tiny human being that's dependent on you and needs you to survive. However, with, good planning, a great husband, it can literally be the best experience to bring a child into the world. You get to see them experience things for the first time. I just think that's really special and that's beautiful. And it's something that I definitely want to do more of, because I'll tell you what, we are raising a crunchy kid. That's for sure. He is going to be barefoot, crazy, climbing trees, do not care. But yeah, so that's kind of something I've been like trying to figure out, and Max and I have been trying to figure out, is just like, yeah, okay, we didn't get the first year or two of marriage that we kind of anticipated and that we planned for, but you know what? That's totally fine. How do we pivot now with a baby on the way, and how can we be more intentional and really just try to plan things so that we don't become complacent with how we are spending our time, if that makes sense. I guess another thing that I'm kind of finding difficult is figuring out where my place is in the online creator space, because on one side, I absolutely refuse to partake in the AI slop, or I don't know, the rage bait side of the Catholic influencers and everything like that. Though I do feel like it might be getting better, which I'm very happy about, but of course there's still going to be people like that, so that's just how it is. But it's just like inflammatory content is very popular. It's what gets the most views, the most engagements, the most comments, etc. So it's what's pushed the most in the algorithms. But it's also kind of what the people want. It's what the audience wants because they keep watching it, they keep commenting on it. And so because the people keep wanting stuff like that, they want high cortisol Catholicism, that is what the creators end up giving to them because that's what does really well. But it can be so disheartening watching somebody miscommunicate the faith, use AI to write their scripts without editing them or anything. Like, I've used AI to compile information for me, but I've never used it to write a script for me that was like word for word, this is exactly what I'm gonna say or anything like that. I've more or less just used it to compile links and information, but there are a lot of people out there who rely on AI to write their scripts, and it's very obvious. But there are a lot of people that just cause division and get people riled up in the comments, and I am just really, really tired of high cortisol Catholicism, and I think that was a term that was actually coined by my friend Connor McCaughlin. But these creators, they gain a very, very large following, and then the creators who are honest, who want to share truth, beauty, and goodness, they're kind of left in the dust by the algorithm and by the audience because it's low cortisol Catholicism. It's not interesting. It's kind of lame to people. So, those people hardly get any views or engagement. So on the one side, if you don't give into the slop and everything like that, the algorithm leaves you behind, the audience leaves you behind. But then if you do give into the slop, you're not helping grow the kingdom of God. You're exploiting it. And it's just really unfortunate because there are so many people out there who are addicted to drama and stress and high cortisol levels and just all of that. So when they see low cortisol Catholic content, they don't think it's as interesting. They don't want to engage with it as much. But it's really important because I promise you, your faith should not be stressing you out the way that it does on X or on YouTube when you watch a certain content creator. But I just feel like I just started coming back. Like I just started getting into a groove again with my content and uploading regularly and everything like that. And then I'm gonna have to go on maternity leave and everything's going to change because I'm gonna be a mom. And so my perspectives are gonna change. I'm gonna be learning a whole lot of stuff. And it's like, is that really stuff people are going to be interested in? Is that really something people even want to hear about or that would be helpful for people? I mean, I don't know. You know, I pray about it, I talk to God about it, and he's kind of given me the like, it's up to you, kid. And I'm just like, that's not very helpful for me. And I do think it really depends on how I end up approaching this new area of life, because there are a lot of people, a lot of vloggers, a lot of mommy vloggers and people out there who just overshare on the internet, and I do not want to be one of those people that overshares. But at the same time, I also want to be somebody who can share my experiences and the things that I've gone through, how I've overcome different things that I'm wrestling with, stuff that I'm struggling about. So striking that balance of not oversharing, because if I'm not comfortable sharing something, I'm just not going to share it, period. That's like my rule. And despite the fact that I feel like I have shared actually a pretty good chunk of my life, it's only like 5% of my life. The other 95% I keep completely private, and for good reason. I mean, the internet is not a safe space. But I do think that that is something I'm gonna have to constantly wrestle with and kind of work out and pray about. I can't get lazy with that or flippant about it and be like, oh, well, this will get me views if I say this, so I should post it. It's like, no, that's not how I work. So that is definitely something that I'm navigating and trying to figure out as, you know, we progress through all these new changes. But before I keep yapping, I first want to talk about our sponsor, Sacred Spark. If you're a Catholic single and you are absolutely exhausted by dating apps treating people like products, I found something different. I think Sacred Spark is going to be a game changer for you if you have not found success on other dating apps or dating in person. Something that I love about Sacred Spark is they actually blur the photos before you match with somebody, so you can focus more on the person than what they look like. There's even this free course that they offer called Dating 101, which is run by Emily herself, where she actually gives you tips on how to date intentionally and how to grow as yourself as a person so that you are worthy of being a spouse one day. This app was made with intention to get you off the app, to stop scrolling, and to start real in-person relationships as soon as possible. There are also so many other perks on this app, so definitely go check it out. I've linked it up here, or you can click in the description below. It's completely free to join, and it might just lead you to your person. So a huge thanks to Sacred Spark for sponsoring this video, and let's get back into it. Okay, and then speaking of my prayer life, yes, I have a routine. Yes, it's fairly consistent, but is my prayer life really dry right now? Yeah, 100%. I genuinely feel like my prayer life has been so hard recently, and you know what? That's just how it is. I know a lot of people get really stressed out about their prayer life and not feeling consolation and stuff, but you know what? With my insanity, crazy relationship with God that I've gone through and everything, I trust him. I get it. I get why I have dry seasons. It's nothing to be worried about. But also, with this season of my life, there are so many different things that are demanding my attention that sometimes even doing my morning offering feels almost impossible. And if I don't actually do my morning offering in the morning, or I don't set an alarm or something, it's not gonna happen. Partially that's because of pregnancy brain. Hello, my worst nightmare ever. Literally, I've put Max's books in the freezer. I thought salt was poison. Pregnancy brain is just a whole other level of like stupid. I don't know how to describe that. I forgot that socks went on my feet. It's been fun. It's been fun. I think it's more fun for Max because he just can't wait to see what I do next. That's really dumb, because he gets a kick out of it, and I appreciate him getting a kick out of it. I just wish I had two brain cells to rub together. Yeah, my prayer life is completely dry. It's just like right now. And you know what? That's okay, because it goes through seasons, and that's totally normal. You know, sometimes I feel consolation for a little bit here or there. Maybe I'll feel his presence here or there a little bit. It doesn't really matter to me. I still go to mass. I still fulfill my obligations. I still have a prayer life. You know, I don't really mind. I guess I mean, it's annoying, like I said, but I don't really mind because I've gone through worse dry seasons. So we just do what we can, stay consistent, plug along. It doesn't mean that it's not hard or that it's not frustrating at times when I desperately need consolation from God and I just feel like I'm not receiving it. But it's, again, our feelings are not proof of anything or that something's working or not. Our feelings can be very deceptive at times. So I'm literally just doing what I can with what I'm given, and God sees that. He sees intention, he sees that we're trying, and he can give us grace through that. He can work through that. Everybody goes through their own struggles. Everybody goes through their own changes. Not one person's life is going to look like somebody else's life. So whether it's graduating high school, losing a loved one, literally anything, any type of change, it is 100% okay to need to process it. Even if that change is positive, even if it's a good thing, it's okay to mourn, the past, or to realize that things didn't go exactly the way you planned. And if that thing is negative or bad, it's okay to go through the motions. It's okay to need to heal. It's almost been, oh my goodness, how long has it been now? Since October? I don't know, you guys do the math. But the point is like, it's been a while now. I'm obviously still not over my dad. I'm obviously still not over the death of my dog. That is a whole other thing that I don't think I've actually talked about publicly. I've only really talked about it on my Patreon, and I don't think I want to talk about it publicly because it's just really, really hard for me still. But change happens. It's okay to need to process it, no matter what kind of change that is. It's okay to need to go through the motions. Just because somebody else cannot relate to the change that you're going through or the emotions you're feeling does not mean that those feelings are invalid. Like, yes, don't let your emotions control you to an unhealthy point or anything like that, but God gave us emotions for a reason. They are healthy when they're rightly ordered. And as a recovering people pleaser, that is something that I'm really, really trying to learn, is my feelings are not invalid. I have to go through the process of, okay, why did this upset me? And I never lash out at anybody. I never get angry in the way where it's like it's going to cause more problems. It's more of like a soul-searching situation where I'm like, okay, why does this upset me? Is this a trigger, or is this something that's more deeply rooted? Do I feel like it's attacking my identity? There are a lot of different reasons as to why, something could bother us, but that has really, really helped me heal. Because then I can recognize my triggers, my warning signs, all of that stuff, and really make sure that I'm working on that so it doesn't affect my relationships or my friendships. Anyways, I digress. We'll kind of just see how things progress more as I get closer to my due date. Obviously, I am bulking the heck out of videos so that I can go on maternity leave and that I can still make sure I'm putting content out for you guys. But obviously, I'm still gonna try and update you guys where I can on my Patreon. I don't really want to do a whole lot of like public posting about private stuff, and so most of that stuff is on my Patreon. I also have some exclusive videos going up for my patrons while I'm on maternity leave. I don't know how many videos I'm gonna be able to bulk for YouTube before I have to go on maternity leave, and so, well, have to. I want to. But I will be consistently posting on Patreon. We have a group chat, they get exclusive content, they can vote on videos, they get videos early too. I always forget to mention that. I always post the videos early. I digress again, but if you are interested in that, it's a great way to help support the channel and to support my growing family, and you guys get exclusive content. So it's like a win-win-win, you know what I'm saying? And by exclusive content, I just mean posting stuff that I'm too afraid to say publicly. Anyways, that's all I have for you guys in this spontaneous random video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Again, huge thanks to Sacred Spark for sponsoring this video, and don't forget to check them out. I've linked them in the description below. You can also find my Patreon and my other affiliates linked below. Alright guys, with all of that being said, I will talk to you guys later. Bye!